Little Africa was possibly the most prosperous area that blacks have ever collectively developed any place in the world.
Oklahoma was regarded as one of the cleanest states in the nation and cherished its reputation as being called God's country, or the Bible Belt of America. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, as I first stated, my husband predicted this that Sunday night at church. Them days we had BTUs. They about cut them out now, and we don't have no BTU. But he made a public statement and told them that this was going to happen. But we didn't know. We hadn't seen no sign. But after church and after we went home, several men, young men and stuff, you know, they get all shook up and everything. We had a good, dear policeman at that time. We called him Bonnie Cleaver, Uncle Bonnie. He was down there trying to corral them because the trouble was arising, and we didn't even know that, with this black man and this white woman. And they down there showing out down to police station and all, and he was riding this big old horse, and he was telling them, you know, it wasn't going to be none of that. But they had guns and everything, and some of them come clear out as far as Latimer Street. That's where we lived. And running by there, men, get your guns. Get your guns. Blood's running on Greenwood like water. My husband said, that's just a lie. That's what he said, excuse the word. But he told me, he said, don't get disturbed about that. Say, they running along with them guns and shooting and going on. And say, in the morning when they need them, they're not going to have no ammunition, and the white folks not going to let them have it. Won't give them nothing. So that's the way it started off with us. Well, naturally, women always get excited. And but we didn't have any children then, and my husband, he was consolation for me. He's the one who saw the vision. I didn't see it, but he knew he had seen something coming. So he told me, said, Rosa, this is it. Send them, said those men just clowning. So they won't have a bullet to shoot in the morning, and white people won't let them have none. So we went on to bed. And he said, you go to bed, I'm going down here and see what they're doing. He ran down on Greenwood. Come back, said they ain't doing nothing, just clowning. He talked about them down there with their guns in their hand. And policemen was trying to corral them. So he said, well, we'll go to bed. He said, but no telling what's going to happen. So we did. And he woke me up about daylight that morning. He said, we got to get up and go. The white people had put a machine gun on that big hill right up there and pointed down on all of us down in here. And they was shooting like this, the barrel of gun that way. One man that walked and sold vegetables every day, I can't think of his name now, he was shot up there just a block from our house.
What you see here is the very famous Mount Zion Baptist Church, a congregation that survived the 1921 riots and managed to rebuild on the exact same location where it was bombed and completely destroyed exactly 70 years ago.
In 1921, a man's word was his bond. You measured the masculinity of a man by how much he kept his word. The congregation of the Mount Zion Baptist Church sticks in my mind because the year before the riot, the black congregation took out a 20-year mortgage and built this brand new church. And the Klan burned it to the ground. But instead of running out on their mortgage, instead of telling the bank, you're just going to have to take your losses, That congregation took out another 20-year mortgage and paid off both mortgages simultaneously. That's character. There were other heroes, too. Many of the whites in the southern part of the city had black employees. And those employees had become almost extensions of their family. In fact, a lot of Tulsans were raised by black domestic employees. And when the riot erupted, many of those families hid those blacks in their basement at great jeopardy to themselves, because if the Klan had ever found out that a white had hidden a black in their basement, the white family would have been persecuted, if not horsewhipped. Probably the two most singular heroes out of the riot was the Tulsa County Sheriff and the Tulsa County Black Deputy Sheriff. Willard McCullough was a Tulsa County Sheriff at that time, and he was the only sheriff in the whole state that had black deputies. His chief black deputy was Barney Cleaver. And you got to keep in mind, when that riot erupted around Tulsa County Courthouse, there weren't more than maybe a dozen deputies in that building. And Willard McCullough stood on the south steps of the Tulsa County Courthouse and told a mob of several thousand Ku Klux Klansmen who were heavily armed that he was not going to release Dick Rowland. Barney Cleaver stood on the north steps of the county courthouse and told the black crowd that they weren't going to release Dick Rowland. Well, you put yourself in the position of a white county sheriff in a southern state in 1921, facing several thousand Ku Klux Klansmen, and you don't have more than maybe a dozen deputies to back you up. And Barney Cleaver's on the north side of the courthouse telling a black crowd the same thing. I don't know much about Barney Cleaver or Willard McCullough before or since then, but I can tell you this. On May 31st, 1921, they became, maybe earned the right, to become world-class cops.
My husband told me, said, we got to go. And I said, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go out there. He said, yeah, you got to go. So you remember he had told the people he couldn't hardly get me out of the house. So I give him a little argument about it, but I had to go. And I just had on my barefoot sandals and had a head rag on my head. And he said, let's go. We can't stay here. So we got to keep moving. So he got out there and he went to preaching to the people. See, we was very thickly settled in on both sides of the streets. And all the houses was burnt down on my side, on this side and that side, but two houses, my house and another. All the rest of them was burnt down. See, all those little people, every chance they got, they would stick fire to the house. And all that fire was burning and folks was hollering, some of them were running. And my husband told them, said, don't run, said walk and stay out in the opening where they'll see you. And so won't nobody get shot. So the bunch we was with, they tried that and we made it to the park, where about noontime the bells come ringing and the horns and things. And somebody told us, said the militias are coming. And so T.R. told him, said, walk out on the railroad. We took the Middleton Valley Railroad going north and we'll walk to Mohawk Park. And that's where those people caught us. They was in trucks. It must have been some mighty big trucks. And it was full of soldiers, and the soldiers all come to Tulsa like this, come on us like this.
The Klan was extraordinarily powerful in Tulsa in 1921, but then again it was extraordinarily powerful throughout Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, during the 20s, Oklahoma impeached and convicted 2 governors, allegedly, of course, for other charges, but it was an open secret that one of the principal reasons they got impeached and convicted was that they were anti-Klan. Majority of the Oklahoma legislature were either Klansmen or supported by the Klan.